Well, hello and good morning. It's Wednesday. It's almost March. We are just a few school days away from spring break. I'm sorry I can't be with you today. I am out on a field trip, but I will be back tomorrow. And if you are finding you're really struggling after today's lesson, please come see me in AM support. We can go through all of this together. Take us a couple minutes, just knock everything out, make you feel much better. Today we're going over multiplication and division when we're looking at sort of these rational functions, these fractions that have variables like x's in them. You practiced adding and subtracting on Monday and in some of the homework. So keep up practicing the adding and subtracting. And then today we move on to multiplication and division. Before we get into the notes, I just want to point out a couple of things. One, first, you got 2 homework assignments in your mailbox, and that's just because we are short a day. I want to make sure you have access to all of the practice. What you choose to do ultimately depends on your time, your need, your motivation, etc. But there will be a homework check tomorrow on Thursday, and it will cover homework 18, 19, and 20. So that's what the check is all about. The homework check covers homework 18, 19, and 20. So if you're looking at homework 19, this is what I suggest for the first page. If you need to pause it here and quick take a note, that's fine. This is the first page. Again, some stuff here that's review because you have a test coming up on Tuesday. Tuesday. There's some more with addition. And then if you look at the back, here are my suggestions to you for the back. Those ones there that I've starred, those are good extensions, especially ahead of the group quiz. This one probably should just be circled. That's a really good one to make sure you know ahead of the group quiz. Same thing with this one. Maybe I changed my mind. Those are actually really good to know ahead of your group quiz on Friday. So again, some review, some things you should be able to do, some things that are more extension-y pieces. Definitely for these ones that I starred down here, use some technology to assist you there. So that's homework 19. Looking at homework 20, let me give you some feedback or some notes about what those should look like. So this first problem is review. Then here's where we see that new stuff. This is what we're working on today, multiplication and division. This is a hint for later if you need. You can come back to this video, of course. And some more things to review and some good things to make sure you know how to do. This last one, this problem 5 here, that's definitely extension. That's some crazy symbolic manipulation. Any of you that can finish that and bring that to me and show me your work on that, I'll probably give like extra credit and Jolly Ranchers and high fives and hugs if you want them. That's hard. So anyway, those are the notes on the homework. Pause and review it if you missed them. Ultimately, you're responsible for the homework check tomorrow, Thursday, and it's covering homework 18, 19, and 20. All right, so let's take a look at our notes for today, our things that we want to think about. And we want to get into multiplication and division. But before we do that, I want to pull out a big concept that is important and seems kind of trivial, but it lets us answer these first questions. All right, so I'm going to talk us through some things, and then you're going to go through and make some notes and answering some questions here. And then you're going to come back and watch the second video. So I'm not going to fill this out here until the second video. But some things I want you to think about is this idea of 1, what it means to be equal to 1. So we know the number 1 is equal to 1, and 1 means singular. There's only one of it. It's all by itself. But there are lots of ways that this idea of 1 shows up. So this expression here is 5 divided by 5, or 5 over 5. It's the fraction 5/5. Right? So 5/5. If I divide this piece into fifths, who picked 5? 5 is a crazy number to try and divide up here. Okay, well, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Oh, I'm really good at that. So there's fifths and 5/5, and you can see that it makes a whole, right? So this is stuff you played with in middle school. But the idea here is that when my numerator and my denominator are the same, right, then I'm talking about having a whole. 5/5 makes a whole. And that idea, you've got to understand that idea stays the same if I'm in algebra. So if I'm talking about x plus 12, and I'm talking about having x plus 12, x plus 12ths, right? So this is the size I've divided the circle into, and this is how many of those pieces I have. When those are the same, I have still a whole, right? So again, numerator and denominator are the same. It means I have as many pieces as I cut the whole piece, as I cut the whole thing into. So when I have x plus 12 over x plus 12, I have 1. It's the same thing as saying 5 over 5, which is still 1. All right, so this idea of oneness is important. And if you're bored, well, my apologies, go ahead and start working on the practice problems. But this idea of 1 is important. And this comes up when we start to think about when we're adding and subtracting or multiplying and dividing fractions. So if I'm looking at multiplying the fraction x plus 6 over x plus 4, and I want to multiply that by x plus 4 over x plus 6, right, then we see x plus 6 and x plus 4, and again x plus 6 and x plus 4 because I've multiplied these. So I've multiplied those two together, I've multiplied those two together. And you can see here numerator and denominator are the same. Both have an x plus 6. Both have an x plus 4, all in multiplication. Numerator and denominator are the same. This just equals 1. Now, some of you use the language cancels out. Some of you are immediately seeing this kind of thing and seeing canceling. Be careful with that word cancel. Cancel doesn't really tell us what operation is happening. What we're seeing here is 1. This equals 1. This equals 1. Right, so when numerator and the denominator are same, we have 1. We have a oneness. We have a whole. So so that might help you answer a few of these questions here, thinking about multiplication. And then the other thing I want to bring back to you is this idea of division. What happens when we divide fractions? So if I have, for example, 1/2, and I want to divide it by 1/4, right? What does that mean? It means I'm taking half of a shape, right? So I'm just taking half of a shape, right? We could even just look at the half of a shape. And I want to figure out how many 1/4 could fit in there. How many 1/4 could fit in there? Well, let's go back to looking at the whole. Here I've divided it into half. How many 1/4 could fit in there? Well, if I divide the whole piece into fourths, now it's into fourths, how many fourths are in that 1/2? Well, it's 2, right? And so that's 1/2 divided by 1/4. Well, what we really did there was we figured out what happened if we took that half and we multiplied it by the reciprocal, by the 4/1. We multiplied it by that division of 4 that we used on the circle. And when we multiply, we see that it's 4/2, which is 2. Right, so this idea that division of fractions is equivalent to multiplying reciprocal is important. And if you've forgotten this from middle school math, it's time to sort of mark that down, flag it, keep it forever. Okay, division is the same as multiplying by the reciprocal. So if I have 1/x plus 6, and I say divide that by 1/x plus 4, what I'm really saying is 1/x plus 6 times x plus 4/1. It's the reciprocal of that fraction. And again, if that's hard for you to think about, go back to thinking about dividing a half into some smaller pieces. How many fourths go into that half? Because it's harder to think about it when we're using just symbols. All right, so now pause or stop this video in a minute here and try and answer some of these questions. And then when you're done, check your answers with video 2. Don't watch video 2, please, until you've done this work here.